Hey guys, welcome back to the Q&A portion of Dune Club II, Session 5. First, we're going to talk about some questions from Patreon. Take some of my Patreon questions. Thank you guys, my Team 19 members on Patreon. You guys are awesome. Simon Arsenault asks, Denis Villeneuve, who is directing the next Dune adaptation, got a pretty good performance out of Harrison Ford in Blade Runner 2049. Do you think there could be a good role for Harrison Ford in either a Dune or Dune Messiah adaptation? I think that if Harrison Ford was super into Dune and he really liked Dune and wanted to be a part of it, then sure, I'm in. But if it's just like a check is a check, I'm just doing this, I don't want to see that Harrison Ford. But you're totally right, Simon. Denis Villeneuve, I haven't seen Harrison Ford actually act in a long time. And because he just doesn't give a fuck. He's just whatever. People just keep throwing money at me, so I'll keep doing this even though I don't give a fuck. He does not give a fuck about Star Wars. He hates Star Wars so much. It's so apparent to me when I watch him. And but to see him in Blade Runner, really fucking doing it, and I was not at all upset at his performance as Deckard. I didn't want to see his performance as Han Solo, meh. His performance as Indiana Jones in the Crystal Skull, meh. His performance as Deckard in 2049, yes. So, but that's also because Harrison Ford, he is a grumpy old man. Harrison Ford, I remember I was watching there's that crazy Ultimate Blade Runner fucking Blu-ray whatever thing I got it a billion years ago, and there's a whole interview with Harrison Ford, and a really long interview with Harrison Ford, and in it Harrison Ford is so lively and so he just had such an amazing experience working on this film. He said that he had the best acting moment of his life, of his career, with Rutger Hauer when they were on the rooftop at the end. He said the acting opposite Rutger Hauer was some of the most powerful fucking acting he's ever done in his fucking life. He just came alive, It was just because that's why I loved Harrison Ford. He's kind of like me, where it's if he hates something, he just can't hide it. And if he loves something, he can't hide it. He's just so cute. So if he's super into Dune, and he has a great attitude about it, then yeah. I don't know who I'd want him to play though. I mean, I don't know. Who would I want him to play? I mean, I think that he might be, I think it would be cool to see him as Dr. Yui a little bit. I could see and him not being a hero and being the traitor and stuff like that. I think that I would like to see him as Dr. Yui. That's what I'm going to say. That's what I'm going to go with. He would be a good Liet though. Yeah, you're right. Lucas Fair came in and he said that he would be a good Liet Kynes. And yeah, he'd be a great Liet Kynes. For Gurney Halleck, I think I'd like to see Gurney be a little bit younger. I think he's a little aged out for Gurney, for me personally. Lucas Fair comes in on page 248. Paul and Cheney says you may have eternity. I have only now, but this is eternity. He stroked her forehead. I find I'm most at peace when I live in the moment and suffer the most when I worry about the future or the past. As a person with prescience, would you suffer more than the average person or less? As a Zen philosopher would be a happier Kwisatz Haderach than Paul. Yeah, I think that we suffer a lot because a lot of our suffering comes from worrying about the future, which are things that are just illusions and may or may not ever even happen. And we're constantly trying to beat the future of all these odds of things that we think are going to happen. We're always trying to outsmart the devil, and so we have a lot of unhappiness because of that. And I think that living in the present moment as much as you can, I mean, we're always going to get carried away. There's going to be times where you get carried away, but it's that's what meditation practices are about is learning to be present in the moment more and allowing yourself to be present in the moment more. And I think that that's something I myself am working on. Also, because I also do find that I suffer the most because I have these expectations. Expectations are the mind killer. It's so it's better to not have expectations for the future. Just live in your present moment and stop worrying about all that other stuff. But yeah, if you had prescience, you would suffer so much more. You would suffer so much more than an average person, as we see Paul doing. Because the thing is like, even though Paul, is a Messiah who chose not to like sacrifice him, crucify himself, and he chose to take power and do government, he still suffers. I mean, he still suffers. He has to carry his own cross around. I mean, it's not like he doesn't have a crown of thorns, in his own way. So, yeah. Doug Stutoff. Last session, you were talking about the measurement in Paul's throne room. Here's another question about language. On page 225, we meet with the words, hating every erg of it. Herbert mentions the erg as a unit of energy a number of times in the book. Erg, he uses it for the Greek. Erg is a different meaning and comes from Arabic. The erg is from the centimeter gram second system of units, CGS units, which has replaced the SI units starting in 1960. So it was on its way out as a system right when Herbert was doing his newspaper article on sand dunes. I will say, though, that when I was taking chemical engineering courses in the 90s, we still used the centipoise. We still use the centipoise when dealing with the viscosity of liquids, and the poise is a CGS unit. On page 313 of the Dune Encyclopedia, under the Holtzman article effect, the energy released when a laser gun intersects with a defensive shield is listed as 4,500,000,000,000,000,000,000,000 ergs, or slightly less than 0.1 kiloton on the atomic scale, or this is math stuff, guys. You're getting real over my head here. 4.5 by 10 to the 18th power ergs, or 4.5 by 10 to the 11th power joules in SI units. Do you think Herbert was actually expecting the erg to come back into common usage, or was he just choosing it because that's what he grew up with, or perhaps deliberately using a less common unit to point out that in a future epic scientific usage might be different, or just to generally promote scientific literacy and get people's brains to work? If you are digging through the dictionary deeply enough, you'll find out what an erg is. You're likely to look up 3 or 4 other things along the way. I mean, I think that he used that word for many reasons. I think that he's so great with words. I love the words that he like names for things, and he always has like several meanings for why he chooses one thing. Like he never has one specific meaning. So it's like, yeah, like erg has a different meaning in the Arabic sense, but then it also has the scientific sense. So it's like, I mean, that's definitely like, yes, why he would use that unit or use that term. But also, I think it would be to generally promote scientific literacy, because I looked it up. I was like, erg, Google, and I was like, oh, unit of power. Okay, cool. Like it did get me to like go dig through the Google dictionary. So I think it was a little bit of everything. But thank you for that. Thank you for all the engineering stuff, chemical engineering courses. Can you believe that my family was trying to encourage me to go get an undergraduate degree in chemical engineering at one point? What? It's like, do you guys know me? Like, who are you? I mean, that's, just because you possibly could do something doesn't mean you should. And I like Lucas came in and was like, oh wow, Doug, like you guys are so cute supporting each other. Like I love the community that comes up on the Patreon questions, because a lot of you guys, like when somebody asks a question, other people will come in and start talking about it, and it's really cute to see you guys interact. I read that, so yeah, it's nice. It's nice to create a nice community for people. C. Manuel says, on page 252, Lady Jessica writes about religious government not being self-assertive. This got me thinking about the main purpose of the jihad and Paul's empire. What does he want to achieve with all of this? How is this religious fanaticism helping humanity? Isn't he not against all of those religious political groups? And, I mean, if we go to book 4 and we can get to God Emperor of Dune, it's like everything he's doing is essentially setting everything up for his son who rules after him, Leto II. And to see how Leto uses the what Paul has built really makes it all come into focus, because they're both Paul is a prophet. Leto becomes a god, like, a living god. And so they're both like have this higher goal of leading humanity on what is called the golden path. And it's essentially like another word for maybe more the middle path. And they have humanity's best interests at heart, and they are acting in the interests of greater humanity. So it's like what he's doing, he disagrees with it. He thinks religious fanaticism is gross. He's disgusted by it, but it does serve a function and a purpose that does come into play later and helps Leto to teach humanity a lesson in their bones that they will never forget. And they're here to give humanity a little bit of a spanking. I mean, this is like a little bit of a chastisement for humanity. I don't want to get into it too much, but when, God Emperor Leto is on the scene, he's just like, like, you think Paul was a tyrant? Like, this guy rules the universe for 3,500 motherfucking years, It's like, it's crazy. Let me see if I have this. Here it is. Yes. So I have this, if you buy any of my Dune Club merch, you get a free one of these old bookmarks that I made for Dune Club 1. And on the back of this, there's a whole thing that kind of talks about it. There's a big quote from God Emperor, and he says that when I set out to lead humankind along my golden path, I promised them a lesson their bones would remember. Teaching them a lesson. I know a profound pattern which humans deny with their words, even while their actions affirm it. They say they seek security and quiet, the condition they call peace. Even as they speak, they create the seeds of turmoil and violence. If they find their quiet security, they squirm in it. How boring they find it. Look at them now. Look at what they do while I record these words. Ha! I give them eons of enforced tranquility which plods on despite their every effort to escape into chaos. Believe me, the memory of Leto's peace shall abide with them forever. They will seek their quiet security thereafter only with extreme caution and steadfast preparation. So that's some real shit. Okay, that's some God Emperor shit, guys. So hopefully we can keep this train going. 2019 will be Children of Dune. 2020 will be God Emperor of Dune. Lord willing, if we all survive and make it that far, that would be great. Michael Erickson says, do you think that one of the main reasons Jessica left Arrakis is that Paul was resentful of her? Knowing the scope and necessity of the jihad, do you think he shared the blame for those billions of deaths and maybe Cheney's with Jessica? Because if it weren't for her scheming and presumption into making him the Kwisatz Haderach, he and the universe may have been able to live in peaceful ignorance. I think that Jessica lives on Caladan because she's over this shit. She's like, I played my part. I'm too old for this shit. I want to go relax. I've had enough death and destruction and awfulness, and my children have taken over the Empire, and they're really fucking bonkers. And, I'm just going to go do me. I'm going to hang out with Gurney. We're going to have a great time. We're going to go sailing. I don't want to live on this shitty fucking planet with all these assholes. Plus she wouldn't want to be there. There's so much intrigue and all sorts of awful stuff going on. She didn't want to be involved. So I think she's just I don't want to be involved. And also it's that's what a good mother should do, is kind of let their children do their thing. It's well, he's the emperor of the universe, so I need to go let him do his thing, and I'll live my life and he can live his. Mark Wagner asks, when did Paul realize that he was basically fucked? I would say, definitely at the start of this book, before then probably, but I don't know when the exact moment. I think he's always kind of known, though. It's just the level of awareness of that knowledge kind of just gets higher and higher. Doug thinks he says, I'd say a fair fraction of Paul's self-reflections throughout both the first and second book are asking exactly how far back he knew. I think one or two times in Dune Messiah he refers to his earliest childhood visions and asking if it was inevitable back then or not. And then Last Mimsy says he spoke of terrible purpose since the time around the Gom Jabbar. That is true. He felt like he had been filled with a terrible purpose after the Gom Jabbar thing. He felt a feeling. He sensed it. He didn't know what it meant. He didn't know where it was leading him, but he knew that he had a terrible purpose and that it was going to be hard and it was going to be painful. So it's like, I think that he's always kind of known, but he didn't know exactly what it would look like. You know, it just shapes itself and becomes further and further apparent the longer it goes on. The letter F says, what's the reason for the new faction Leilaxu staging a threefold attack on our protagonist despite never being fully introduced? Hate, Scytale, and then being involved with a stone burner. Do we ever get to dive deeper into these mystery antagonists? Also, what is the symbolism of the faded yellow circles on the cover of this book? Wait, faded yellow circles. Oh, I see what you're talking about. I don't know. They look cool though. There's like these little circles in here. Circles, I don't know. But for the Leilaxu, I can tell you, we do dive deeper into the Leilaxu when we get into, there's a little bit in, like, as the further and further we go, you learn more and more about them. But the time when you learn the most about them is in Chapter House Dune and Heretics of Dune. Those two books, really, you get to take an inside peek into the Bene Gesserit, especially, like, definitely an inside behind all access behind the scenes fucking pass on the Bene Gesserit, which is fascinating. And then also you learn a lot more about the Leilaxu. And another thing that I should have maybe mentioned that I didn't, Bajaz is what is known as a Leilaxu master. He's a Leilaxu master, and within their fucked up society, you have certain people at the top, and they're like Leilaxu masters, and they have this whistling language, and they know how to control face dancers and like because face dancers are below the masters. You know, they're kind of like this kind of slave class, and the masters, like they are all kind of dwarfs, like they're little, like almost, some of them look more like dwarfs, some of them look more like elven a little bit, but they have these little childlike bodies, these little child bodies, and Bajaz is one of them, but they get a lot more fun as you keep going, because also it's like when you first start Dune, you have the Leilax, or you have the Bene Gesserit, and you think of the Guild as the opposite of the Bene Gesserit, and then in certain ways they are. The Bene Gesserit rule through religion and persuasion and influence and sex. The Guild rule through math, science, economics, schlepping boxes from one end of the galaxy to the other. So it's like you have these two different, like very different, like masculine and feminine situations. But then you have the Leilaxu come in, and it's like the Guild, there's not a genetic component to the Guild. Like they don't rival the Bene Gesserit with like their genetics program, because the Bene Gesserit have their eugenics program, where they're trying to breed certain traits in people, but they do it the old-fashioned way. They do it the fair way, with genuine seduction, sometimes. And then the Leilaxu, on the other hand, from the Bene Gesserit, they are like Frankensteins, like they are genetic wizards, but they use like forbidden, like weird methods that are not natural methods. There's a whole thing in there. So it's like, I love that. At first you think the Guild is really the big, the Bene Gesserit's main rival, maybe, but when in fact the Leilaxu, I think, are a better rival for the Bene Gesserit, because they both deal in flesh, but one of them, they both have very different methods. Last Mimsy asks, Edric mentioned that Duncan suffered a grievous head wound which required many months to regrow many months of regrowth. Ollie noted that the Leilaxu restoration had given him youth, but Jazz said, I was there when they put your dead flesh into the tank, and I was there when they removed it alive and ready for training. So it would seem that at least Hate in particular is not a traditional clone, but rejuvenated and reformatted version of the actual flesh Duncan used to be. Is this true of all Golas and future Duncans, or is Hate a specific vanity project in this regard? Yeah, because that's one thing that they talk about in the later books. Because I know that in the later books, there's a character named, well, I don't want to say it. There's a character, the Bene Gesserit, you know, they got to deal with Leilaxu. They kind of make a deal with Leilaxu. And then they, like, take some cells from this person. And then from these cells, well, this guy was alive. And then from these cells, they're able to, like, regrow. And, I mean, it's still called a Gola. Although I guess you could call it more of a clone. Because this one's different. It's like they took the original and they just took his dead flesh and then like regrew it and revitalized it, which is a little different than just taking some cells and like regrowing them and cloning them. So, because like all the other Duncans, there are a lot of spoilers. There's a lot of Duncan Golas. There's the spoilers. That's some God Emperor business. We won't get into that until God Emperor stuff. But I can't remember in that if they talk about whether, I think they just have the cells. Like, so this specific Gola is like, I think the only one that has Duncan Idaho's like original body. I think the rest of the Duncans are just like clones. But this is definitely like a specific project. They wanted the specific guy with the specific, like, this is the flesh that taught you, because they're trying to get to Paul. So they'd rather like have that than like a clone. Ismael Santos. And also because they're trying to convince him to like get a Cheney Gola. And then it's like, hey, look, like we made this guy, you know, from a dead flesh. So we'll take your dead girl and then we'll bring her back to life. And it'll be the same girl. It's not even a clone. It's the same girl. You know, she's just been dead. And then we brought her back to life. So that's kind of part of it too. Ismael Santos. The last part of Session 5 had me interested in just what makes Bajaz tick, because he's not only a Leilaxu tool, but he seems like the ultimate weapon, the one who proclaims to not be a weapon, yet can change the battlefield universe with a single statement. His conversation with Hate has to accomplish so much in so little time to drive Hate into killing Paul, into betraying his master, and to reveal the Leilaxu's true purpose. On page 269, Bajaz proclaims that he is words, such words as the lightning which strikes from the sand in a dark sky. What is it about words that Frank Herbert is hitting on that can so completely change the landscape of a person to end up preparing a death blow for a human, quote-unquote God like Paul? Hi from Insomnia and mucho amor to you. Well, I mean, you know, Frank Herbert's a writer. I think that he believes in the power of words. I think that he understands how powerful words can be, that in fact words are more powerful than weapons in a lot of ways. And yeah, as I was saying, it isn't clear, but Jazz is a Leilaxu master. So he's not just some thing that they made. Like, he's a part of their upper class. Like, he's like really in. And then within this, we don't get to this later, but within the masters, there's like a, you know, a circle of like ultimate masters who are like, you know, a council of like the highest ones, but that doesn't come in until much later. But yeah, I mean, words are what, and it's crazy how like words just like drive everything, you know, like, I mean, words are just like crazy. They're these little things that we say and then we turn them into things, and they help us communicate with one another, and they're very, very powerful, and language shapes the world. I mean, Herbert has a huge respect for words and for language, and he loves language. I think that he's super into it, because it is like it's a fascinating weapon to wield, you know. You can do a lot with it. And he wants people to think about the words. I mean, even if you think about the Bene Gesserit using the voice, it's, you know, yes, they use the voice and the way that they say the words, you know, and the words that they choose to say can influence people into doing things. And that's, I mean, it's really true. Like, if you think about it, people think the voice of like as this mystical thing. And in the 1984 movie, you know, when they use the voice, they have this, you know, this kind of effect on their voice, and it's like this mystical sounding, like parcel tongue motherfucking shit going on, you know? It's like this whole other thing. But really, like, if you think about it, like, you know, remember growing up when your guardian yells at you and they say your full name, you know, and they're like, bah, 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 and they say it in this way and you just stop, you know, like when you hear that voice and you hear it like that, it's like, it freezes you, you know, like, and that's using the voice. Like, that's just one example of using the voice. It's really interesting. I'm learning how to control my voice more and more. It's something that I'm learning how to do and figure out on my own, is using the voice and how to use words in a way that, to my own ends, you know, and it's really fascinating. It's a lifelong study. Mario says, hi, is it just me or these chapters, particularly Bajaz, we're constantly questioning our idea about identity and how purpose influences it. It reminded me a lot of Foster Wallace's The Broom of the System. Page 231, purposes, training, and disposition determine a kind of destiny. Page 233, Bajaz's finger can be different things when used differently. The purpose defines us. Page 250, countless things fated never to be are still present in our memory, even though they're not real, they contribute to who we are and influence our choices. Page 266, hate and Bajaz are dice. They have different faces, values, depending on how you cast them. Finally, page 271, there is nothing formed nor balanced. Each hour brings change. What do you think about how we construct our identity? I think one should always be poised in a plastic state, ready to accept change. Yeah, I mean, one thing that really struck me many years ago is I was really listening to a lot of Grant Morrison talks. I was going on YouTube and listening to a lot of his famous talks and speeches that he's done. And I can't remember where he said this, but he was talking about how reality is plastic. How, you know, and this is also something that's explored in Dune, where, you know, Duke Leto's final thought is, you know, he is like in awe of how the day the flesh shapes and how the flesh shapes the day. You know, it's like people a lot of times go, oh, is it nature or is it nurture? And it's like, well, it's both. You know, it's like our external influences influence us, but then in turn we influence our external shit. You know, it's both. So I think that being plastic, like in a plastic state, ready to accept change, is a great way to be. And I think that the more you try to struggle against it, the harder it's going to be, but that change is inevitable. We live in an ever-changing universe all the time. We change from second to second to minute to minute. You know, I think there's a lot of stuff that Frank Herbert's talking about everything, but yeah, he's absolutely talking about how we construct and shape our identities. And it's something that people don't really think about as much as they should. It's like, and I think that one thing that I really like about like role-playing games, like Dungeons and Dragons, I don't personally play it, but I know a lot of people who do, is that it really gets people to think about creating their character. They're like, okay, I'm going to create a character. What do I want my character to be? And they go, okay, these are the stats I want. These are the things I'm going to do. This is what my character's like, you know, da, 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 da. But people never, like, it kind of trains you to like figure out like how to, like, people don't really do that for themselves, like as a person. And I think it's kind of a helpful exercise to do that. Like, what kind of person do you want to be? Like, who's your D&D character in this reality? You know, what are your stats? Like, what are you trying to do? It's something that, like, because I have to market myself and because I play a character on the internet, it's something that I've had to come like to terms with and think about, like how I want to shape my identity as Comic Book Girl 18. And then now I'm trying to break away from that a little bit and do my own identity of Danika as an artist. And like, how do I shape that identity? You know, it's like, how do I shape it for myself and how do I shape it for my audience as well? It's really important to realize that you shape your own identity in a lot of ways and like be aware of that and have a plan for yourself. Like, have a plan for yourself. Don't go willy-nilly. Don't let life just change you, you know? It's like, you can take this stuff and change yourself a little bit. Evolve. I don't want to say change. Evolve is a better word than change. Evolve, you know? Change sounds scary. Evolution sounds good when you get into like the next level. And that's the thing. It's the important thing about language. You know, you can just choose two different words. They essentially mean the same things, but they have totally different connotations. You know, it can have totally different connotations. And it's important to choose, you know, which one of these words you want to use. Because you could say, like, I was thinking about power, like, hey, you know, I use the word power, and power is such an intangible thing. People really don't understand. Like, it's such a big word You know, it's like, what is it? When you say it to people, it kind of just it glazes over them. They don't know what you're talking about because it's such an abstract concept. But if you say influence, people, I think, understand it better. Like, in their interchangeable terms a lot of times, power and influence. And so I'm like, oh, okay, if I explain things, if I use the word influence rather than power, I think more people will understand what the fuck I'm talking about. So it's important how you choose your words too, and how you choose to shape yourself. James Partham says, hi, Danika. Thanks for doing Dune Club again. I hope it's been therapeutic. It has, and you're welcome. What do you think you'll do next? Have you considered Twin Peaks: The Return? I could benefit from your analysis and a community discussion. Also, I know you're salty about Dark Phoenix. We all are. But have you watched Legion? It's a brain-breaking and visually stunning. It gives me hope that at least one director can do something beautiful and unique with an X-Men character. Well, we were talking about this earlier. I'm leaning towards Exorcist Club. I was thinking 2001 Club originally. I'm thinking more about Exorcist Club, especially like I would love to do it during the winter, during Christmas time, because I think that it's very much it's a very Christian tale, and it's a Christian tale of like self-sacrifice for like, you know, loving thy neighbor, and it has like all of these fucking things, which if you did it around Christmas time, I mean, that's would be way more, and I think it's a great time to talk about these things. You know, that's when you're supposed to be celebrating the Christ force. So I think that'd be cool. I watched the first episode of Legion, maybe the first two. Did we watch the first 2 episodes or the first episode? T, do you remember? I watched the first episode of Legion. I liked it. I just didn't keep going. I don't know why. I don't know. I get frustrated every time I read anything X-Men related. Anytime I watch anything X-Men related, and it's like I'm always just like, I could have done better. Fuck, I'm such a fucking elitist piece of shit. I should watch it and check it out. Everyone tells me it's awesome. Maybe it is. I'm just afraid that if I don't like it, then everyone's gonna like not like me because everyone likes it so much. That's really what I'm afraid of. And I'm very salty about the Dark Phoenix. Yeah. Doug Stuthoff says, I wouldn't mind seeing her do a Barnstormer in Oz by Philip Jose Farmer, for that matter. It has 3 strengths. It's an underdog book. And Danika is looking for things that are on the periphery. It's short like Dune Messiah. It gets us off Frank Herbert for just a little bit. However, there is one drawback. The book has 1 print run, like Dune Encyclopedia. Yeah, if it's got 1 print run, then there's no way we can do it. I have to be able to buy it in bulk. Plus, I haven't read it. So, plus I'm going to do whatever I want. And I want to do Exorcist Club. But thank you for the suggestion, Doug. It was so frustrating when I was on Twitter. I was like, hey guys, here's a poll. Like, which would you rather me do? And then everyone's like, I'd rather you do this book. And then I was just like, ugh. Like, every time I saw that, it was just like, don't tell me what to do. Like, this is my book club. These are your options. Mom is telling you can have this or you can have this. Okay. It's like having kids. It's like you have kids and it's like, they was like, wait a minute, I want to go here. And you're like, no, that's not the option. I gave you, do you want a hamburger or do you want chicken fingers? Like, I want spaghetti. And you're like, that's not on the fucking menu, bro. Like, that's not on the fucking menu. Okay. Like, you're getting fucking chicken fingers or you're getting fucking hamburger, whatever the fuck. Okay. Like, I want spaghetti. No. You're not getting spaghetti, bitch. Like, we're not doing The Shining. We're not doing, like, this weird book that I've never heard of that everyone wants me to do. It's really funny. I know, you guys are my beautiful babies. It's true. The old Atreides says, I came for spaghetti. I know. You're not getting spaghetti, okay? Like, you're not fucking getting spaghetti. Get out of here. All right. Red Sonja's chosen male makes me laugh every time I read that. Page 249. What is law? Please speak to your interpretation of this. To me, it addresses Paul's tiring of government intrusion in the nature of humanity, compared to the laws of the Fremen, which comparatively was very minimal. Yeah, the law sucks. I mean, the law is just for people who can't think for themselves, you know? It's just like these fucking ideals that we make and these structures we make, but then it's still just, it's a corrupted system. Every system we make, doesn't matter whether it's a religious system, doesn't matter whether it's a legal system, doesn't matter whether it's a governmental system, doesn't matter if it's a fucking business system, they're all going to become corrupt because humans are corrupt and the law is corrupt. And because of that, it fucks people over. You know, I mean, people get fucked over by it all the time. And it's more of a hindrance a lot of times than it is helpful. You know, it's like, it's just such a fucking convoluted, bloated system that it's not even helpful anymore. It's just like hinders everybody, but yet we all adhere to it because I guess we're wild animals and we have to have someone to tell us what to do because we can't control ourselves, you know? I mean, it's just kind of like, I don't know, I really like in the later books after God Emperor in Chapter House and Heretics of Dune. Like, there's not to say there's not laws, but I mean, it's like it really goes from laws and from a centralized government to arbitration, you know, where it's like, okay, if people really can't figure it out and people are really having a problem, they will get in arbitration, where if they have a dispute, you know, they go do this instead of lawyers and courts and things like that. There's arbitrators, and the Reverend Mothers, specifically the Bene Gesserit, function in the new empire as arbitrators. You know, like they're like the ultimate judges. It kind of reminds me of like confessors in the Sword of Truth series. Which, by the way, we're not reading that. Don't ask me to read that. It's just like there's too much rape. It's just like that guy is like writes about way too much rape, and it just like bums me out. I'm just like, God, like every time I'm reading that book, like every few chapters, I'm worried for my own vagina. You know, I'm just like, oh God, oh, it sounds awful. Like it just like fucks me up. You know, it's just like, stop putting this idea in my head, dude. So yeah, and it's just like laws, and like laws become programming. You know, it's just like programming where it's like, okay, if you do this, then okay. If you do this, then you're bad, you know? And it's like people don't think for themselves. People just start thinking in black and whites when, you know, obviously our world is very complicated. Everything's connected to one another. So, you know, laws is for people who don't know how to fucking handle themselves. You know, people who don't know how to handle themselves create laws for themselves. And it's like, gosh, do we really need that? But we do, unfortunately, because a lot of us are fucking crazy. So, yeah, but instead of just, you know, trying to like make it to where you have a society of people who aren't like assholes, you just create laws and then punish people. Doug says, I don't expect this to be read out loud, but it's interesting how Bajaz's statements that Duncan's attacks and therefore has willpower and shows self-determination dovetails with Danika's Mystic Monday discussions about demons and how demons are reflective of one's assertive side and that you still need a healthy amount of that in a normal psyche. Yeah, by the way, I was thinking, here's another thing off topic. People have been asking me, what are you going to do after Dune Club? What's the plan? And I've been asking myself that same question. Like, what am I going to do after Dune Club? And I think we're going to have a return to Mystic Mondays. I think we're going to have a return to Mystic Mondays, but although the format will be different. I think it'll be more just like this format where it's just me and we're going to talk about some sort of whatever mystical bullshit I want to talk about. Some of the things that I want to talk about include, let's talk about the 4 suits of the tarot. What does that mean? Where do they come from? What do they correspond to in a playing card deck? What is the different levels of symbolism connected to all of these things? That could be one. I'd like to talk about numerology with you guys. Was like 1 through 9 and 10, like a cycle. What does that mean? What is the esoteric symbolic value of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 and 0? That would be fascinating to talk about. It'd be cool to talk about more, I don't know, all sorts of stuff. So I think I'm going to get back into some Mystic Monday. And then I was also thinking about maybe doing like topical Tuesdays. Maybe topical Tuesdays where we talk about like just mundane shit. You know, we have mystical Mondays, you know, and then topical Tuesdays where we talk about like dumb shit that's happening that we can all talk about, have a meeting, discuss the insanity of our world that's going on around us. Jasper Fenn says, I'm a bit confused about the plans of the conspiracy against Paul, especially the Loxu end of things. Bajaz's instructions to Hate make it clear that he knew that Paul would evade the stone burner. How is he so confident that Paul would fall for Hate's distraction long enough to be killed? Initially, the conspiracy plan seemed to be geared towards making Paul destroy himself, but suddenly they seem so much more direct. Did the Leilaxu greed for a possible Paul Gola get the best of them? And, I mean, he doesn't know if this is going to work, you know, if he can distract Paul, but if he can, then great, you know? It's like he's hoping that that's, but they have like, this is their A plan, but then they have B, C, and D, and E. If like this falls through, they've got this contingency and that contingency. So even if Hate is not able to kill Paul, they still are like hoping that at least he will agree to get a Cheney Gola. And then if he can get a Cheney Gola, then like, okay, like there you go. Like that's some amount of power over him. That's something. So, and I mean, initially, like the conspiracy, they were telling everybody that they were, the Bene Gesserit and the guild, they were saying that like, oh, the plan is to get Paul to destroy himself. But it's like the Leilaksu have their own plan that like they're trying to enact that like leaves the guild out of it, leaves the Bene Gesserit, and puts them firmly in charge of what's going on. But they do have the Leilaksu greed. I mean, yeah, they want to get both. They want to get two Golas in there, but if they can only get one, they're down with that. They're down, like any foothold they can get, they're going to take it. So Daniel Kraft says, is prescience in Dune supposed to be an outgrowth of mentat ability? Is it hyper-focused reasoning enhanced to a mystical degree by the spice that allows someone to see potential future timelines, or is it just something else entirely? I've just assumed all along that this is what was happening. Paul clearly had some degree of prescience before he became the Kwisatz Haderach, and it really started to unlock around the same time his mentat abilities did. I'm confused then why Gaius Helen Mohim is able to see the jihad at the end of Dune. Also, if she has these abilities, why couldn't she hide the conspiracy the way Edric was able to? Okay. His Kwisatz Haderach stuff is separate from his mentat stuff, but I think that his mentat building in his brain helped him to become a Kwisatz Haderach, where he could handle that amount of information being thrown at him, because it makes it to where your brain is able to store vast amounts of information and like in an orderly way to where you're not overwhelmed by it. So I believe that if he wasn't trained as a mentat, if his prescient abilities awakened, it may have destroyed him and he would have maybe potentially just died, right then and there from the overwhelming shock of like having the future like bust in on him. So it's not an outgrowth of the mentat ability, but the mentat ability is a foundation for it, I would say. And then, Gaius, like, again, it's like The Shining, there's different levels of shine. And so the Reverend Mothers have a little bit of shine, but not on like the level of prescience that, say, a guild steersman navigator does. So a navigator has enough of the juice to where he can hide from other prescience, whereas like the Gaius Helen Mohim just like dabbles, like the Reverend Mothers just kind of like dabble in it in a smaller way. Costa Katsilis says, teacher, can we talk about the similarities between Paul and Neo? We were just talking about this. Though Nico and I were talking about perhaps the idea of a blind person with sight beyond sight being a religious archetype, and that Herbert and the Wachowskis both pulled from the same influence as opposed from the latter pulling from the former, I very much pictures Paul's sight the same as Neo's seeing in Revolutions. What are your thoughts? Okay, so yesterday I was writing my stuff up here, and T was downstairs, and I was like, T has not been reading this, so I just tell him what's going on and like tell him like, okay, this is like what's going, and it helps me to like figure out what I'm going to say, talking to him about it and explaining it to him. It's actually really helpful. And I was telling him about how Paul loses his eyeballs, but now he can see even though he doesn't have his fucking eyeballs. And he was like, oh yeah, like Neo in the Matrix. And then I was like, oh fuck, I never saw the third movie. I just gave up after the second one. I never saw the third movie. I've seen like bits and pieces of it. But I remember at the time when it came out, I was like really struggling with, I had identified as Christian for like my whole life. I was born into it. But then around the time that came out, I was definitely like dabbling in atheism and like breaking away from that idea and that religion. And so when I saw this religious Jesus-like stuff in the Matrix Revolution stuff, like when I heard about all this, it really turned me off to it. At the time, I was just like, I don't need any more Jesus shit shoved down my throat right now, like, because I just felt that it had been shoved down my throat for like 20 something years, and I was just like, I'm done with it for now. I need to take a break. Like, I can't do this. I was like kind of resentful towards it. But now, I've kind of worked through a lot of these resentments, and I've separated my resentments from the hypocrisy of humanity and the actual philosophical teaching, which is helpful. I've been able to separate the two. At the time, I wasn't. And Jesus is now a homeboy of mine once again. He wasn't for a minute. I had to ditch, but then I came back around, and I was like, no. But so I need to see Revolutions. But according to Tyson, it's very fucking similar. And I do think the Wachowskis pulled from a lot of things. I think that they pulled from a lot of things. I think this is one thing that they pulled from. But all art builds on other art, and that's okay. We're all influenced by something. Everything, all artists are influenced by other artists. Like, you can ask any fucking artist and be like, what's your favorite shit? And like, what are your favorite works? And if you go back and you look through that artist's favorite stuff, you will absolutely see the influences from that work incorporated automatically into that artist's work. Art builds upon itself. So, I mean, it's okay. But at the same time, too, it's kind of like, all right, Wachowskis, I see you. I see. It's, it's like with Patchface and Bajazz. It's like, but it's all, so there's a fine line between homage and like.
It also might be a case of parallel thinking, because in both cases you have a character that's so powerful in his vision to see another world that he's blinded in our world, but his power is so powerful in the other world, he doesn't need his physical eyes.
So
well, archetype of that, I think.
These are archetypal things. These are archetypal things that we're working with here. So, I mean, being able to see beyond sight. I mean, that's an idea that came obviously before Dune, so. I mean, also, it's so funny. I did not realize until I had watched Lawrence of Arabia. I didn't realize how much Frank Herbert was influenced by Lawrence of Arabia until I watched that. And I was like, oh, fuck. Like, Paul is so T.E. Lawrence. Like, he's so T.E. Lawrence. Like, there's just so many parallels that are just like, and I love Lawrence of Arabia is the thing. Like, I fucking love that movie. I started to listen to the book on Audible, but it was just like I need to read it. That's one of those books where it's like, some books I just need to read, and it's going to be dense, and it's like not a difficult book, or it's not an easy book because it's written so long ago, and it's like you really have to kind of like take your time with it, and I'm not able to listen to it as well as I would be able to just read it. So I need to read The Seven Pillars, I believe is what it's called, T. Lawrence's book, his own account of his extraordinary adventures in Arabia. Yeah. So, by the way, if you've never seen Lawrence of Arabia, treat yourself, fam. Treat yourself. It's really good. Carolyn Medeiros says, one of the quotes that caught my attention in the session was when Paul was having the meeting and reminiscing about the fact that he didn't see this particular moment so clearly. It occurred to Paul then that all creatures must carry some kind of stamped out by purposes of varying strengths, by the fixation of training and disposition. From the moment the jihad had chosen him, he'd felt himself hemmed in by the forces of a multitude. Their fixed purposes demanded and controlled his course. Any delusions of free will harbored now must be merely the prisoner rattling his cage. His curse lay in the fact that he saw the cage. He saw it. Although Paul speaks about prescience, this paragraph got me thinking about the power of knowledge, talking about science, philosophy, and human behavior. And the more we know, the more trapped we feel, and in some ways unhappy, because we understand that the concepts we grew up on, like freedom and free will, are not as real as we thought. The more knowledge you have, the more awareness of the cages that bind you to the life that was put to you by your family, your country, your culture, religion, and also the access to money. The way we behave is modeled by all of these instances. I've heard you speak about horoscopes, among other beliefs, and I'm curious to hear your beliefs in the matter of destiny, freedom, and free will, which is such a present subject in these books. And, there's something really interesting that I find in a lot of Eastern religious stuff, the Zen Buddhism and things like that, where they talk about acquired conditioning. There's an idea of acquired conditioning where just by living in this world, we are conditioned we're programmed, essentially. We're programmed in some way by our outside, by our culture, by everything that's around us, everything that's going on. And that in order to become a happier person, you have to deprogram yourself. You have to get rid of a lot of the shitty programming that was just put on you when you were a kid and you had no choice and you just went along with it. And then that's this whole thing. It really is up to you. Like we were talking about shaping your own identity. You can shape your own identity, but it does require a bit of deprogramming and reprogramming on your own part, which is very difficult. It's very time consuming. It is not easy. You have to have a lot of self-honesty. You have to be able to look at yourself and really see what you're doing. And I mean, it's crazy to me. This happens to me not a whole lot, but this happens to me where I see someone and you look at you listen to their words, but you also look at their actions. and you see their actions, and even sometimes you listen to their words and they're saying, I'm doing this fucked up thing. And then later they act like they have no idea what they're doing, why they were doing that, why someone's mad. And it's like, well, you were trolling them, and you specifically said earlier that you were trying to troll them, and then now they got mad, and then now you're acting like you had no idea that you were trolling them, and that, oh, fuck them, like, what's their problem? And then you're just sitting there like, wait, but then they're really not aware. It's like they really forget, like they hypnotize themselves, into forgetting stuff. It's really weird, because sometimes I'll bring up stuff like, oh yeah, you're doing this, and then people are like, what? And it's like, oh, wait, I thought you were consciously aware of what you were doing, and you were even talking about it consciously, but I guess you're not really conscious of what you're doing, and it's really bizarre. It's really bizarre. It's like, oh, no. Oh, fuck. What's going on? It's really scary. I don't know. The thing is, like, we're both robots, and we're both, like, space brains, I feel like. It's like we have like shitty programming, and we also like have mechanical functions that it's like we just have to do. Like, you have to eat, you have to sleep, you have to breathe, these are things. We have to shit, we all do these things, like these are things that we all do, and that you have to do to be alive. But then there's like all this other stuff about like how you can shape your own perceptions, like you have some control over your own self. And honestly, the only thing you have any control over is yourself and your perceptions. And yet most of us don't have any control over even that, So it's like, well, if you don't even have control over yourself and your own perceptions, then like you can't shape your own destiny, It's like you just let life happen to you. Actually, hold on. Let me look up. Hold on. Life. Let me see if I can find this quote. This is from like Chapter House. Let me see if I can find this quote that's like all about like people letting life just happen to them. Oh, here we go. It's Chapter House quotes. Chapter House quotes. It's from hold on, let me put Chapter House in here. Maybe that'll help me. Chapter House. We're gonna take a minute. We're gonna find this quote. It's gonna take me a second though, so just bear with me. It's really important. Life is a game. Let me look at the images. Fuck. No, they're just giving me images of the fucking book. Life is a game. I'm still looking. Hold on. I found part of it. Hold on. I found part of it. I'm going to like put this in and find the other part of it. All right. Hold on. Because this one, like this fucking Frank Herbert quote about life was like real shit. I was like, oh my God. Well, I can't find the whole quote, but part of the quote says, some never participate. Life happens to them. They get by on little more than dumb persistence and resist with anger or violence all things that might lift them out of resentment-filled illusions of security. It's just like, oh, once you realize that like you don't know anything, and that like life is a fucking crazy game, it's like your whole again, changing your perceptions of what life is. People think that it just happens to you, but it's like, no, you affect these things. Like you're creating, even now, the seeds of the evil seed of what you've done germinates within you. It's like we create all of our own problems. And so, it's like, you got to be self-aware, man. You got to be self-aware. And you also have to self-regulate. Here it is. I think maybe. Hold on. Confine yourself to observing, and you always miss the point of life. The object can be stated this way: live the best life you can. Life is a game whose rules you learn if you leap into it and play it to the hilt. Otherwise, you are caught off balance, continually surprised by the shifting play. Non-players often whine and complain that luck always passes them by. They refuse to see that they can create some of their own luck. And that is some real fucking shit. That is some real fucking shit. It's like, play the odds, dude. Life's a fucking gamble, you know? And like, you can stack the odds in your favor, and it's not always going to work out. But sometimes it will. And if you just play those odds and play the probability, like, for example, here's a fucking fun game I'm playing. It's called, I know that they're making a new fucking Dune movie. Okay. Dune is only going to become more and more popular in the next few years. It is going to become more and more in the public awareness. So now I am building over the next few years. I'm planting a flag saying that I'm the fucking Dune lady on the internet. I'm it. I'm the one you want to talk to about Dune. I'm going to have the most power and influence over the internet of swaying people of how they're going to feel about this movie. And it's like, I'm hoping that by doing this, I'm putting myself in a position of power to where when we get closer to the movie, I may have, you know, I feel like the emperor himself will have to deal with us. Like these people and this production company and everything who's creating this, they are going to have to deal with me on some level. They are going to have to acknowledge me. And so I don't know, maybe could I rat my way into an interview? Could I get into the opening screening? Could I potentially even rat my way into a cameo in one of these movies? I think it's possible. It's not necessarily gonna happen, but something's gonna happen, and I'm putting myself in a position to where, you know, it's like they're gonna have to deal with me. They're gonna have to deal with me. Like, I am the Dune motherfucking lady on the internet. So, and if I say the movie sucks, it's not gonna be good for them. It's not gonna be good for them. I have a lot of influence. So, yeah, that was kind of a little off topic, but whatever. It's like, life's a game. Play it, rip it, dip it. Like, have a good time. Let's see here. Pierre Jerome says, so is swallowed in a dry throat Herbert's words are wind, or any other George R. R. Martin annoyingly repeated phrase? It occurs twice in the chapter of this session. I feel like it occurred a lot more in the first book. In any case, the Leilaxu bargain the dwarf describes to hate mentions planets beyond the Imperium. I thought the Imperium covered the known universe. If the Imperium does not, possible retcon, then what else is there out there for the Dune universe? And it's like, well, I bet like most of this is my thinking. I think most of the planets, me pulling shit out of my ass, most of the planets are in on this Imperium business. But of course, it's like you live in a universe of possibilities. So there are going to be some outworlds who are like, rebel, like fuck this, like Tupile is like kind of not, I mean, I guess it's part, but it's like an exile planet where it's like they're not really kind of a part of that. They're doing their own thing, so it's like a place where people can go. So but maybe they also just meant the outworlds, where it's like also the further out you get from the Imperium, the further and further away, the more kind of wild and, you know, the less and less they give a shit. You know, the less and less that they adhere to any of these rules, because the further and further away you're from mom and dad's little watch, the more you can get away with. So, yeah. Okay, Mark Jake X. Neither Hate nor the dwarf Bajaz can be trusted. Why would they be left alone to interact without supervision by Stilgar or some other Fade Akin? If the Leilaxu plan to use the dwarf to trigger Hate, why tell Edric to do it? Did the Leilaxu plan this years ago when the diseased Fremen bought the dwarf? Did they plan to have the stone burner brought to Arrakis and stolen as well? How convoluted are their plans? Also, does Bajaz remind anyone else of Tyrion Lannister? Or I guess Tyrion reminds me of Bajaz. So, okay, so I think that Paul knows that, I mean, he puts them together knowing that like Bajaz is going to trigger some shit in him and do something. I think that's like kind of part of his plan, because he kind of sees stuff. So he's like, hey, this is an important step for me to do what I need to do, so I need to allow this to happen. So I think in my mind he's allowing it to happen. They're not like getting one over on him necessarily. But then again, Bajaz isn't seen in Paul's visions, so he wouldn't know, but he could probably guess. He's like, okay, this guy's a Leilaxu thing. Obviously Duncan's from the Leilaxu. You know, I mean, he kind of like put two and two together. I think he would kind of assume that something would happen. And when the Leilaxu was talking to Edric about prodding the Ghola, they weren't saying to trigger him and program him. They were just saying to prod him and to keep him off balance by like talking about his like former self. And then, did the Leilaxu plan this years ago when the diseased Fremen bought the dwarf? Yes, I think that the dwarf was, he was a master who allowed himself to be bought. This has been years in the making. Yes, this plan has been years in the making. I think that they knew about the stone burner, or found out later about the stone burner, and then got the Kisserit involved. Because earlier they were like, oh, can we turn the Kisserit against him? So they must have gotten to the Fremen and not knowing about the stone burner, but then like used, you know, like figured it out there and like used what they had. Because it's like, that's part of, you got to be able to evolve your plan as it goes on. But again, it's like, this is me just like being like, whatever, maybe, I don't know. but yeah, their plans are, it's like, again, plans within plans. Like, yeah, their plans seem very convoluted, but they're like plans within plans within plans. And there's like stages and levels and layers, just like how Bajaz has to get through like Hate's psyche to get to like the bedrock and get down there to where he can like program him. It's like they have to do the same thing to Paul, where they just like keep him off balance and like slowly just like make things like burning his eyes out. You know, it's like, okay, well now there's a whole new level of it. You know, it's like this slow thing to like try to like tear him down. So yeah. Anyways, hey guys, do any of you out there on our stream right now, do you guys have any Dune related questions before we start talking about dumb China movies like Meg? Tanika Waldo says, Hate has artificial eyes, right? Do you think that if a Fremen got artificial eyes, would he still be discriminated? Well, they just wouldn't be trusted, because again, the Leilaxu, like, you don't know if the Leilaxu can record through your eyeballs and see through your eyeballs. Like, that's a big fucking security risk. I mean, nobody really knows how they're doing what they're doing and what these metal eyes can record. Because that's when, like, Paul brings it up. He's like, you know, in court, Paul brings it up that, like, someone's like, oh, well, all those blind Fremen are getting Leilaxu eyes. You know, Corba's like, they're getting new eyes, whatever. And then Paul's like, who knows what bondage goes with these fucking eyes, you know? And everyone's like, ooh, he's right there, you know? Like, so he would be discriminated against a little bit. I think he would feel some of that, but he wouldn't, you know, they wouldn't throw him out in the desert, though. Ruben Dubes says, it seems like they glossed over the worm being stolen. Will we get some insight on what happened there? Do we get insight on the worm being stolen? I don't think that we necessarily do, but it is disconcerting to them that somebody was able to do it and get away with it. I mean, taking a worm off Arrakis, like that's a deal. Mark Jake says, why cast the blind into the desert? Shouldn't you take their water? Well, I mean, it is weird that normally they would take your water, but they're just like, they just don't even want to deal with it. They just like, go out in the desert, just get out of here. We don't even want your water. Like, you're just useless. Like, get out of here. Yeah, you think that the tribe would take their water, but they're like, no, because they don't want to kill them. They don't want to kill you themselves and murder you. They just need you to go take care of yourself and just quit being a burden on the fucking tribe. Bald Powa says, isn't there another faction of women who challenge the Bene Gesserit? Yes, later in Heretics of Dune and in Chapter House Dune. That's what those two books are about, is you have a rival feminine power from outside the old Imperium. After the scattering, a lot of people go out in the universe, and some of them come back to the old empire. And there's these women called the Honored Matres, who are a twisted version of the Bene Gesserits, who have enslaved men with their vaginas. You know, they just enslave dudes with hot sex. And I mean, that's 100%. And like, enslave them. Like, if Honored Matre fucks you, you'll forever do whatever the fuck she asks you to do. Like, you're her bitch now. Like, forever. And the Bene Gesserit are like, oh my, we can't have that. Like, that's not the deal. Like, you don't enslave motherfuckers. Like, we don't, you know, it's like, say what you will about the Bene Gesserit's methods, but they don't go around like doing that sort of shit, you know? It's like, it's crazy. So yeah. Let's see here. Alt Rock 420. I still don't understand who brought all of the players in the conspiracy together. Paul brought them together. Their hatred of Paul brought them together. It's like the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Okay, that's what's going on here. They all hate Paul, so they're all willing to put aside their differences and work together because in their own mutual benefit. So that's what brought them together. Let's see here. Frequent beef. Question. Why do you think the Dune books after the first one have such a bad reputation? Dune Messiah was a lot better than I remember and seemed like a refutation of the more traditional hero story of the previous books, which might be the reason. I really think that it's just a part of that whole fair weather friends thing. I think it's all about fair weather friends. People love to watch a story of victory. They want to see the hero's journey. They want to see the happily ever after, they want to do that. They don't want to be there for the fucking shitty times, okay? And that's true of people, and that's true of readers, okay? And Paul is set up as this ultimate hero, and nobody wants to see their hero fall. And that's the whole point. Like, the whole point of Frank Herbert writing this hero and making him so idealized was specifically to show that, he just substitutes one form of tyranny for another. Like, he's not a fucking, he doesn't fix all the fucking problems, and he still falls, It's like, what comes up must come down. And so I think a lot of people just don't like that. And because the first book really is like a hero's journey, and everyone really gravitates to that story because it's self-affirming. You're like, okay, like you start and then you go through this big journey and then like you win in the end, and like you're now, you're the thing, you're the hero. People love that shit, but they don't like all the other stuff. And like that's and I don't know. I think poorly of I do think poorly of people who are like, the rest of the books suck. It's just like, well, you suck. Like I don't know, bro. Because it's like you don't want to see the ramifications of these actions. Like you want to be there. It's like only being interested in the sex act, but not being interested in the pregnancy, the birth, and like this other child that comes of it. It's like, because that's what the rest of the books are. It's like book 1 of Dune is the sex act, but then the next one, like this book, is the pregnancy. Children of Dune is the birth, and the childhood. And then you have like God Emperor, which is like the full ramifications of what Jessica did and what Paul did come to fruition, and all these things and that. And then after that's over, then we go into like how humanity deals with all of those things. It's like all of these books just like echo the repercussions of things that happened in the first book. And I think that that's what's really interesting to me. So, but a lot of people, they're not about that. Question. Was Alia's bath really that decadent 2 sections ago? Does Arrakis still have a water supply problem? The planet is the new capital of the Imperium, and also does Hate really love Alia, or was it a calculated move of a Mentat to remove the sexual tension getting in the way? Also, Hate fear of his original self suppressing his personality is another parallel with Alia. Yeah, totally. That Hate is afraid of this other personality within him, like overcoming him and him becoming possessed by it and him being lost in it. That's totally something that he parallels with Alia. But I mean, it is decadent in the fact that they're rich as fuck and she can afford it, but still it's like there is a decadent aspect to taking a bath on a fucking planet where there's no fucking water. Like, no matter how you cut it, no matter how much money you have, it's pretty decadent. Like, you go out to Dubai, and it's like, that place pretty fucking decadent. Like, yeah, they got the money to do it, but that doesn't mean it's not fucking decadent as fucking crazy. It's just like, it's crazy, like owning fucking princes, owning tigers, and having like crazy fucking cars and like all this other crazy bullshit that I don't even know. I mean, I'm sure there's levels of like insane levels of bullshit and fuckery and hedonism that are just like insane. But at the same time, it's like, it's good because it's not completely either. I mean, yeah, she can afford it. Yeah, it's fine. She has memories of taking a bath. Taking a bath is a normal thing. I like taking baths. I do feel guilty when I take one, though. I do kind of feel guilty, but it also kind of makes it feel better because it's like, ooh, I shouldn't be doing this. There's like that decadent bad aspect to it. It makes it kind of sexy and attractive. Let's see here. Someone says taking the worm off planet gets revisited in Children of Dune, but not deeply in there. Okay, well, thank you for that, Istavan. Appreciate that coming in there. PB Mac. I wish I could enslave a dude with hot sex. Haha. No, you wouldn't. You say that, but you wouldn't. It'd be boring to have a slave. It'd be boring if they just did whatever you wanted them to do. Again, it's really interesting. I don't know why I keep talking about the Sword of Truth series all of a sudden, but the confessors in that, there's these like magical women, and there are these great mediators and judges, and they have this magical power that if they touch you, they see everything, like they see the truth of everything, but once you've been touched by them, you fall in love with them and you're in love with them forever, and you're just their slave. And it's just like, sucks, you know. It's like any man they fall in love with and they want to have a relationship with, if they touch them, then they're just some blind slave, and it's not like a real thing anymore, and they'll just do whatever you ask them to no matter what, you know. And it's just like, sucks. It's like, fucking sucks. It's what a bummer. Virulent. When Paul loses his eyes, does that set him or make him think he's more set in the path of his vision? Yeah. Now he's totally locked into the vision. I mean, even Ollie is like, he holds us in the palm of his vision. She even realizes that she's a part of this, and she's just like, it's fucking weird. It's super fucking weird. Let's see here. Yeah, the Dune series does get freakier describing the sex skills of the honored matres. Let me tell you, there is, if we get all the way to like Heretics of Dune, there's a chapter in there about a Duncan, Idaho versus an honored matre, and it is a very awesome sexual fun description. I really like it a lot. Let's see, any other questions in here? Yeah, and they talk about like there's vibrations involved. There's all sorts of stuff. Yeah. Even in the Duneverse, pussy is still undefeated. I know. It's, you know, it's the void. Let's see here. Any other questions? I'm scrolling through here trying to pick out some good ones before we get into some nonsense. You want a Messiah? Think again. I like that, Desert Rat. That's good. I know that's what Duke God Emperor Leto was like. Oh, you think you want a god? You guys want a god to tell you what to do? Here you go. Sucks. Fucking sucks, dude. Like, you get your wish, bitch. Be careful what you wish for, because I'm here. And people are like, oh, this sucks. Oh, fuck. We can't get off our planets now. God damn it. See here. Let's see here. H.P. Lovecraft book thoughts. Yeah, you should get the unabridged version and just read all the stories. There are a lot of short stories. They're not really novels. They're like, there's maybe a novella in there. I think Call of Cthulhu would be considered a novella, but they're mainly short stories. You should check them out. You can easily get a book that has all of them in there, and try to just get, because you don't get one that just has part of them in there, because then it's like, oh, you're going to want to get more stories, and then you're going to find another book that has some of the other stories, but then some of them you already have, and it's a slippery slope. I would just say, if you're going to get an H.P. Lovecraft, get like, I think the Library of America edition of H.P. Lovecraft, they have like all the stories together. But there's more than that. I mean, there's a lot of other ones, but that's the one I have. All right. Let's see here. All right, let's get into some non-Dune questions. Satanic Waldo says, and am I saying that right? I don't know. Not related to Dune, but if you directed the Dark Phoenix saga movies, would you kill Jean off for real in the end? And would she stay dead? I can't shake my feeling that Jean coming back to life after her death, despite her being a literal phoenix, it kind of undermines the whole saga. But she is also awesome in other sagas, such as Grant Morrison's run. What do you think? How would you fix this? Well, I mean, phoenixes are kind of known to come back. I mean, it was It's a retcon that makes sense when they brought her back in the comic books, but it did take away from the impact a little bit. And she also, I mean, the retcon of Jean's death and having her come back, the retcon that, like, it wasn't Jean that died. It was really the Phoenix pretending to be Jean, and her actual body was really at the bottom of Jamaica Bay this whole time in a cocoon, and it's just been like healing itself from whatever, and I don't know if I would let Jean off the hook like that, because I mean that's the only way they were able to bring her back. Like, the editor was like, well, we can't bring her back. She killed billions of people. Like, she has to be killed for that, you know, like she has to. And then they were like, well, if we bring her back and it's like not really her, and then we can just say that it was some other force that did it, that was responsible for those billions of deaths, then, like, I don't know if I would go that way. You know, I would do the thing where it's like, if you bring her back, bring it back, but she also is still responsible for those deaths when she ate that son. Maybe that's what I would do. But you would have to bring her back. She's a Phoenix. That's what they do. But I hope this movie never sees the light of day, and I'll be really sad when it comes out. So I'll be really sad when it comes out. Let's see here. Oh yeah, they are. The H.P. Lovecraft stuff is pretty public domain, Wicked Inquisitor. So yeah, you can read them all at hplovecraft.com. That's good. Thanks for that. All right, let's see here. Let me take a quick break. We'll be right back, and then we're going to talk about the Meg. We're going to talk about some other stuff. I might get some crackers and eat some crackers. I'm a little hungry. We'll be right back. Give me like another 5-minute break. Or some of you guys bye. I know some of you guys got to get going, but for those of you who are staying, give me 5 minutes. We'll be right back, and we'll talk about some Topical Tuesday stuff. We'll talk about some Topical Tuesday stuff. All right, be right back. Hey, everybody. Let's take a little beans break for a minute. Oh, you make some noises? You want to say something to the internet? Can you guys hear that? Hear the breaths of this little cat. Did you hear her little kitty cat breaths? Did you guys hear Beans' little kitty cat breaths? Yeah. Hey, baby Beans. Let's take a little Beans break. I love this cat. I'm really interested in cats. I don't know if you didn't know this about me, but I like cats. Yeah, did you guys hear the purr? Yeah, it's very soft. Whoa, Nistro is gifting fucking subs to everybody. Whoa, thank you, Nistro. Papa Nistro. What's up, Daddy? What's up, Daddy? ASMR Beans. Yeah, Rumble Bunny. I know that's the one thing, like, people are like, oh, cats, you know, like, some people, like, have a fucking problem with cats, but it's like, you know what, bitch? Purring. Cats purr, man. It's the most magical thing. They vibrate. It's awesome. I love being a part of it. I love feeling their little vibrations when they purr. I like putting my little ear up against her and it's like hearing it, you know, like in there purring around. It's like, it's so good. Did you see, toxoplasmosism isn't worth the purr? That is such crazy shit. Okay, let's just Draco Muss. Do you know dogs also carry that fucking parasite around too? And so do a lot of other fucking creatures. It's not just cats, first of all. It's not just cats that have this parasite in their poop, okay? It's not just cats. It's a lot of fucking animals, dogs included. So, you know, you can get it from your dog. And by the way, you guys are the ones, like, picking up shit. like with your hands, you know? It's like people are like, oh, it's gross, you have a box of shit in your house. And it's like, yeah, well, I'm not fucking picking it up with a thin layer of a bag between my hand and the fucking turd when I take them out for a walk, you know? It's like I have a scooper, my hand does not touch the poop, it scoops into the scooper, and then you put it away and you throw it away, you know? You throw it away. With dogs, they shit on your floor, you know? I mean, cats don't shit on your floor, you know? It's just like... But everyone's like, oh, toxoplasmosis. You just like this animal because your brain, you have a fucking brain parasite. It's like, oh, you really can't imagine someone liking a cat because someone thinks cats are cool. They're so awful that like you have to have a brain parasite to fall in love with a cat. Get the fuck out of here. Cats are beautiful. They are fucking beautiful as an artist. I am just never... As someone who's sensitive to aesthetics, I'm very sensitive to aesthetics. I'm sensitive to everything, but aesthetics also. And it's just like, I am always caught by the wonder and the beauty of a cat. I mean, they're just such beautiful creatures. I mean, they have these lines to them and these curves that are just amazing. I mean, they're just beautiful. They're beautiful. And it's like, not to say that dogs aren't beautiful too, but like they don't have the sinuous lines that cats have. Like cats just have this grace and power to them, you know, this like this ultimate tension, you know, of just like, it's just cat geometry is really special. Cat geometry is really special. So yeah, I'm a big fan. I think they're majestic. I think they're beautiful creatures. There's a reason they were worshipped in Egypt. There's a reason. You know, it's like another thing. It's like, okay, so dogs were domesticated. You know, we domesticated them, and that's why they like to hang out with us. And the love of a dog is very special, and it's very beautiful, and it's really awesome. And like, yeah, dogs are cool, all right. But like, cats have never been domesticated. We didn't domesticate cats. Cats just started hanging out because they felt like it. They were just like, oh, we're just going to start hanging out with you guys. And we were like, okay. And then we just started hanging out. And then we've been hanging out ever since for thousands of years. I mean, yes, there's also there's a practical element to it where we store things like grain, and then that attracts things like rats and like other vermin. And so cats come along and they're like, well, I love eating rats, so I'll just take care of your rat problem for you. And then people are like, well, then you can stick around, you know, like you're pulling your weight. You're actually cool. And so then cats and people have developed this relationship. But it was never like they just started hanging out because they wanted to. It wasn't like they were domesticated from like, you know, like wolves, like dogs were. It's like a whole different thing. So cats are awesome. I don't know. Cats are the best. Cats are beans over that. She's so pretty. She's so fucking pretty. I was like trying to draw her the other day, but she keeps moving too fast. But it's just like, I just look at her every day and I tell her how beautiful she is every day. And every day I'm struck by her beauty. I'm just like, wow, I'm so lucky to have such a beautiful little creature in my life. I get to touch her little kitty body and I get to feel this little cat and listen to her little purrs. And also, it's really interesting, like cats, like when they learned that somehow they figured out that humans respond to a specific frequency that like babies make. Like babies, when they cry in this specific frequency range of hearing. And like our brains are attuned to those frequencies so that when you hear it, you automatically, like it really, you know, you're programmed to like want to help a baby, you know, like this fucking frequency. And cats, apparently when they meow to us, which by the way, they're meowing for our benefit. They do not meow to each other. This is something that they do to talk to people. When they meow and when they whine and stuff, they will use those specific, that frequency range that is the same frequency range as babies. So that's like kind of why like they're manipulating us with our love of our programming to help babies, and using that to their own advantage. And it's like, that's pretty cool. Like mad respect. It's cool that they just like talk to us. And it's also like every cat develops a special language with their owner that only the owner and them understand, you know, but every cat has a way of communicating with their owner. And you know, there's a specific meow for mealtime. There's a specific meow for like let me out. You know, there's a specific, like, you know what your cat's saying to you over time. It takes a while to build that language, but it's really cool. And I think that, like, you know, I like the fact that they kind of meditative, you know, they do some kind of meditation where their like eyes are closed and they're sitting there, but they're not asleep, you know, they're just meditating, you know, they vibrate, they meditate, they talk to us. I mean, it's pretty cool. I think cats are pretty neat. It's like, it's pretty cool animals. I don't know. And they're very, like, I don't know, they're much more of they're like a pet for an introvert, and like dogs more, like, I think more extroverted people tend to go towards dog relationships, and more introverted people tend to go for more cat relationships. Because like in a dog relationship, dogs, you know, they need that master hierarchy. You know, you need to have the alpha dog, and you're supposed to be the alpha, or they're the alpha if they don't respect you. I mean, but they have a hierarchy. You know, there needs to be a hierarchy there, and they need that. They need that discipline, and they, you know, it's like all this stuff. And I don't know. I just don't want to be in a relationship where I have to be the master. You know, like, I don't respect that. Like, I don't know. I want to be in a relationship with somebody who has their own thoughts and feelings, who respects themselves as much as they respect me, that we have a companionship. I'm looking for a companion. Okay. I respect companionship. I don't want a relationship where like it's a dominance thing. You know, I'm more about that egalitarian life, which is very difficult. I mean, humans also, we just need hierarchies. We need power hierarchies. Especially, I think, men, really, like, because I mean, if you look at all the systems that we've built, and men have built most of the systems that we're in, if you look, they're all power hierarchies, you know, whether it's like the Pope, you know, of the church, or it's the president of the United States, or the prime minister, or the CEO, whatever, of a company. There's always like this hierarchy, and it's important, and it's a thing that we have, and it's a thing that's a part of our lives, and that's cool. But you know, I like having relationships where you have a peerage and you're on the same level. You know, and so you get that with a cat, and I respect that. You know, I respect that cats have respect for themselves, and they're not going to let you just do whatever. You know, if you fuck with them and you upset them, then they'll let you know. They will piss on your pillow. They will run away. You know, another thing I respect cats is, you know, dogs. A lot of dogs, if they're abused, most of them will stay. They won't run away. Like, they'll just continue to allow themselves to be abused because they're in this power hierarchy. And so, like, they're the submissive. And, like, with a cat, like, cats don't really put up with that on that level. Not to say that some cats, you know, probably don't run away. But I think that more often than not, a cat would run away from a traumatic, abusive situation, which is, like, that's smart. You know, like, yeah, like, I have more respect for that. Like, it's like, just let yourself, like, yes, like, get out of there. Get out of there. So I respect that, you know, like, I don't know. And each cat's so different. They all have such different little personalities. Yeah. Oh man. See, your brother's cat kept raping your cat. So he took off. Oh, wow. That's crazy. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Cats will leave. They're like, fuck this situation. I'm out. And it's like, yes. I'm like, that's a smart animal. Like, I have respect for that animal. Like, you know, I have so much more respect. And also, too, it's like the way that dogs and cats deal with trauma. You know, it's like a lot of dogs, when they are abused and traumatized, they're just forever fucked up. I mean, forever. Like, they're just, I mean, there's a few dogs that, like, they get into a better situation, they brighten up, and, like, they're cool, and, like, oh, yes, and they're so grateful, and they're happy to be there. But I find that more often than not, when I've interacted with animals, with dogs that have been abused, they never stop being that abused animal, and they're always, like, they just have some weird tick, you know, where they're just, like, forever just, they have fucked up programming, and they'll never be able to escape it. Whereas with cats that I've met, again, it's like once they get out of that situation, you know, there may be some scarring, you know, with their personalities left behind. Not to say like they're going to be touched by the experience, but like a lot of them seem to be able to move on and like rebuild their lives. You know, it's just like, again, it's like mad respect. I see a lot of myself in cats. You know, it's like I tend to identify with them a lot more than I do with dogs. So, you know, but But yeah, but cats are definitely more for like an introverted type too. And I don't know. I love that, like, she makes me work for her affection. I don't know. I'm into that. Like, it's like with dogs, they just love you no matter what, It's like, it's so easy, It's like you come home and they're just like pissing themselves. They're so excited to see you. And it's like with a cat, it's like, they're like, no, you have to seduce me. Like, make me like you, make me want you. And it's like, oh, okay. Like, I see the game. Like, I'll play a game with you, little girl. I like the seduction aspect also. That's with cats, So I don't know. It's a different type of love. But it's more, like I said, I feel like cat relationships is like companionship. It's like you have a companion, which I'm more interested in a companion than being in charge of somebody. It's like, I think that's cooler. But I like dogs. I don't have anything, I don't think I'd ever own one, but if I did, it would have to be the laziest dog of all time. It would have to just be a lazy piece of shit dog who doesn't want to go on walks all the time. Because, like, I don't want to go on walks all the time. I like to go on walks, but I don't want to have to be chained to taking a dog on a walk 2 to 3 times a day every day. Like, I don't want to have to do that. That's just too much for me. So, if I was going to have a dog, it would have to be a female, or it'd have to be a piece of shit lazy dog. Like a bulldog or something that, like, is fat and doesn't want to, like, go anywhere. This is like fat and doesn't want to go anywhere. Yeah, I've been learning a lot about reptiles since I've had Duke Leto. I've never had a reptile before, and reptiles are a whole different situation. But I did learn something about Duke Leto. So he's a Southern California alligator lizard. These are wild lizards. They're not pets. There's not information about them on the internet. There's not a lot of information. I've looked at a little bit of information about them, but there's not a lot of information about them. And about their personalities. And I'll tell you what I've learned about Duke Leto from my encounters is that he is still a wild man. He will never, you can put him in your hand and, like, hang out, and he's not going to, like, freak out, but he's not going to like it either. He's just like, he'll put up with it, but he really doesn't like you to look at him, especially when he's, like, eating and stuff. He doesn't want you to look at him. He's like, fuck you, stop looking at me. And he gives you, like, a fuck you look too. He's like, like, if you come up and you start looking at him, he's just like looks really angry at you. Yeah, Leto is still alive. He's downstairs. But one thing, like, I remember we were at the Huntington. This was not last Sunday. By the way, the corpse flower didn't bloom. It didn't bloom. I was devastated. Not really, but I was bummed that it didn't bloom. So I never got to smell the corpse flower, but I did get to see it last Sunday. If you were with us during that weird experimental stream. But I noticed when we were at the Huntington, we saw some alligator lizards, and they were, like, hanging out in these cracks, cracks in between stones and stuff. Like, they really liked getting in these little cracks. And so in Duke Leto's cage, there's, like, a fake rock wall on one side, and then there's, like, a ledge above it. And, like, Tyson had kind of, like, pulled up the ledge a little bit to where there was a crack in between the ledge and the end of the fake rock wall, and then the bottom of the ledge. And man, Duke Leto just popped right up in there, man. He loved it. He was just, like, all up in that crack, He's just like, he's my little crack baby. Duke Leto's my little crack baby. He loves being in that crack. And then Tyson was like, I don't know, he doesn't need to be in that crack all the time. So he, like, put the ledge back down and took away the crack. And I was like, I lobbied for Duke Leto a few days later, and I was like, dude, what are you doing? Like, he loves that thing. Like, he doesn't like anything. Like, he's kind of a bitch. Like, he's kind of, like, not, like, happy fun time dude. And he really likes that crack. So I think that I'm going to go in here and I made it to where there was a crack again. And I'm going to tell you that dude's hanging on the crack every day. Every day that guy hangs on the crack. I see him all the time. He's very happy in there. So I have learned that if you're going to have a California alligator lizard, make sure that in their habitat you have a little crack area for them to hang out. Because that's probably how they protect themselves. Because it's like, crows, if I let him, he's so fat now. He's such a fat little dude. He's such a juicy little morsel, man. Like, a crow he would be such a great fucking snack for a crow, Just like, they would just snap his fat little body up. He's all fattened up. But I have no plans at this time to let him go into the wild. Although I know that I could at any time if I wanted to let him go into the wild. I could let him go and he would be fine. But, how do I keep Beans from eating him? Well, he's in his cage, and that's really it. But she's always on the lookout. She watches him. She's always watching him. And that's why it's funny. Like, that's why part of the reason why I like him named Duke Leto is because Duke Leto, we all know he's killed. Duke Leto was killed by the Baron. And Beans, I call Beans the Vlada Beans Harkonnen, you know. And I tell Tyson this. I'm like, think of Beans as Vladimir Harkonnen. She's Vlada Beans Harkonnen. And she wants nothing more than to kill Duke Leto. She would love to kill Duke Leto. We know Duke Leto has a shield generator. He's got his cage, so he has a shield generator. But if that shield generator ever goes down and the door is open and she's able to fucking get in there, or he leaps out of it, it's over for that guy. It's over for that guy. Like, if we're not there to stop it, like, she's gonna fucking kill him. So I just know, you know, with this lizard, I already have the expectation that she's eventually going to kill him if something goes wrong. So I'm already, like, setting myself up to where it's like I don't get upset when that happens because it's just, like, a probability, you know. Maybe it'll happen, maybe it won't, but it definitely might, you know. But, yeah, and I do this little thing. I quote the movie. I like to do this quote in Beans's voice where, hold on, let me take a drink. I'll do Vlada Beans's voice. Hold on. Okay. He'll die before these eyes, and he'll know, it is I, Vlada Beans Harkonnen, who encompasses his doom. That's exactly what she's thinking, like, all the time. She's, like, ready to kill this fucking guy. And, yeah, is Beans favored over Duke Leto? Yeah. I mean, she's, again, it's like, she does it. I'm not going to get mad at her about it. Like, I'm not going to be like, oh, you're the worst, Beans. You're in timeout. I mean, I'll be sad for Duke Leto. I'll be sad for him if it happens. But that's just her nature, dude. She's Vlada Beans Harkonnen. You know, she's going to fucking kill that Duke Leto whenever she can. Yeah, Beans has a little voice. She has a little teeny voice that she talks with. She's a little squeaker. I love doing her voice. I do it every day. She's got a bunch of taglines. That's like the best part of having a cat is now you have a familiar. You get to have conversations with them. It's really just me being a crazy lady, but I can act like I'm not a crazy lady. It's like, no, it's Beans. I'm talking to Beans. I'm not talking to myself. It's Beans. It's like, no, you're talking to yourself, crazy lady. But no, it is Beans. It is Beans. I know her. I know what she's thinking. We've been around too long. We're connected. She's my familiar. Yeah. Well, guys, it's 7:43. I know that I disappointed T-Bone. I know that he wanted to talk about more recent stuff, but I was just like, I just don't care. I just want to talk about my cat, and I just want to talk about Tale of Tales, and I just want to talk about Dune, guys. That's it. That's what I want to talk about. That's what I'm talking about. And next week is our final chapter, our final session. I'm so sad. This is going by so fast. I can't believe that it's already almost over. This was crazy. So, but yeah, after Dune Club, we're gonna start doing some Mystic Monday stuff, and then see what happens from there. Go that way. I'm actually gonna be working with Akira the Dawn again on Dune Wave Messiah. So I've been trying to throughout this whole process, I've been underlining things, and you can't really see, but there's a lot of underlines and stuff in here. So I got to go back through this book, find my favorite quotes, come up with some ideas for some things for the Dune Wave Messiah. And I think it'd be cool to do maybe a character-centric one where each song is kind of driven by a character. There'd be a really cool Hate. There's a lot of cool quotes from Hate, some Zen Sunni stuff. It'd be cool to do a Gola song. It'd be cool to do an Alia song. It'd be cool to do a Paul song, of course. So I know I was actually thinking about that. You should auction off your notated copy of the book. I was actually thinking about that. I was like, that's a really good idea. I should just put this on eBay and be like, who wants my book with all my notes in it, you know, like, because I mean it's kind of funny, and it's got all these like things like underlined, and there's not a ton of notes necessarily, but there's also like there's one where like when it's like I write at the beginning of each chapter kind of what the characters are and what goes on in them to remind myself, and it says Paul Still, stone burner eyes, and it has a sad face, a crying face. Sad. And it's like, oh. So sometimes I'll draw little emojis in the corners of my stuff. So yeah, I know I should do stuff like that. I need to do more stuff like that. And actually I do kind of want to do we were talking about memes, like doing maybe like a meme review situation for Topical Tuesdays. We could do some meme stuff. And then here's an idea. Tell me what you think about this idea, because I'm trying to figure out how to make a working economy here, because I haven't had a working economy. So I'm trying to I'm right now in the middle of kind of like reorganizing all my pieces on the board. I'm looking at all the different things I have. How do I make a working economy between all these different platforms that all feed into one another? And I was thinking if I did a meme show, it would be really fun to print out the memes, like print them and have them kind of maybe glued on some cardstock or something and show the memes, you know. And it's funny because it's like, how absurd is that? A meme is an electronic thing that you send to each other, but to see a physical meme, I think would be really funny, is like having physical memes, and it'd be like a cool trading card. And so I was thinking like I could do a meme show where I print off all these memes, and then at the end of the meme show, you know, we sell all of these different memes, like auction off different memes, and then I'll sign each one of them, and then you can send it over to you guys, and then you guys can have a meme that's a signed meme, physical meme. And then you can do whatever you want to with it. I think that would be cool. I think that would be a really cool idea. I don't know if I would do like auctioning it or if I would just do a flat fee. I don't know. You know, there's a lot of stuff to figure out. There's a lot of decisions to be made. But I think that'd be cool. I mean, yeah, meme stickers would be great, but it's like I can't just easily print that off. Like, you know, it's like making a sticker is like a whole thing, and you can't just get one sticker made, you know. It's like, but maybe at the end of each month or at the end of the year or something, we can take the best memes and like make a meme sticker pack or something. Like, I don't know. Yeah. So I think that would be really fun. I think that would be really cool. No, but I didn't develop the meme. I'm saying, well, unless I do make a meme. Sometimes I do make my own memes, and then we could talk about, like, if I make a meme, we can definitely talk about my memes, but I don't make them all the time. I would rather take just the memes that I save on my phone, because I was thinking about it the other day. I was thinking about when I was growing up, you know, before the internet took over and before there was this boom of content, a lot of people saw the same movies. A lot of people watched the same shows because there was a lot narrower of a selection of things that you could watch. And through this entertainment, you know, you became bonded with other people. It's like a bonding glue of the society, you know. It's one of those things where if you meet someone and they make a reference from your favorite movie, then you're like, oh, he's cool, you know, like, you know that they're cool, and like that's how you know you could be friends. And asking people what movies they've seen and da-da-da-da. But now, like, with the internet and with all this content and with streaming and like all the just floodgates have opened, and there's just so many movies being made now. There's so many shows being made now. It's not centralized anymore, which in a lot of ways is awesome and good and is a way for me to be able to make what I make. And I'm very grateful for the situation that I'm in. But at the same time, it's like it weakens the social glue, you know. There's like we still need these social glues of these things that we all experience together. And I feel like now, like, memes have kind of taken the place to kind of like fill in the gap a little bit, since a lot of people don't watch the same shows anymore. You know, there's so much media that people easily miss shows and not everyone's watching it. But people are on the internet and they are dicking around on Facebook and Instagram, and they do see memes in their feed. And I don't know, I think they're really fascinating. So I think it'd be really cool to talk about that. Yeah. Thank you. Love the WTA says, great stream. Just followed today. You have the most perfect voice for just listening and chilling. Maybe more lively background for better visuals. Yeah, I want to do something like, I don't know, I want to change some stuff out back here and like figure out some different background stuff. But right now my hair is like green. So it's like, I mean, I guess I could blue screen myself if I wanted to do some lively background stuff. I don't know. We'll be experimenting with these things. So, yeah. So memes are fun. I want to talk about memes. That'll be maybe a topical Tuesday situation. I don't know. It's weird. It's like, it's kind of like one of those things where being a presenter, it's like you're forced to be like, you know, be interested in this subject and talk about it now. And like, you know, all these people have to like talk about the same subject every week, and they all have to be really interesting and have interesting things to say about it. And I'm just not always feeling it, you know, I'm just not always feeling it. Blue screen. What is this, 1998? Yeah. Well, if you have green hair, then you have to use a blue screen. If you have blue hair, then you have to use a green screen, you know? So it's one of those things. Thanks for clipping the Vladabeans, Harkonnen. Yeah. Make a halo background so it's around your head. I don't know. We'll figure something out. We'll have some cool stuff. I got to figure it out. We'll figure out what we're doing for Mystic Monday background because I want it to look different. Yeah. Well, you thought better backgrounds, no, better backgrounds cost something, and we kind of left the CBG 19 show due to production value stuff. Yeah. I mean, I would love to have higher production values, guys. I would love to have higher production value stuff and do all sorts of crazy shit. It's just like I don't have a budget for it. So it's like we're having to scale back right now while I kind of fix everything and fix my economy and make a working economy where I can actually make this stuff financially work. So then I can have more of a budget to where we can do bigger things. Like, because if you notice last Dune Club, we had a huge, so many people bought the box. And so we had a fucking budget. So I was able to buy a different dress for every fucking episode, which all of them were under $20, mind you. I got them all on sale. I got like the whole thing for like $200, like the whole fucking wardrobe, which was amazing. So it's not like I'm going crazy. And then we had, you know, money to have a production assistant, and we, you know, did all this, like, a lot more stuff than we're doing this time around, you know. So it's like, because this time around not as many people participated in it. So, you know, that's the way it goes. But I think we're still having a good time, you know. Yeah. And yeah, I know. I just saw 2,000 patrons. It's no, our minimum on Patreon is $1. Our minimum on Patreon is $1, but we're getting ready to rework the Patreon a little bit too. So that's another thing that I have to do is like kind of rework that to fit my new economy that I'm creating, because I'm trying to create something where I have Twitch and Patreon and YouTube feeding into one another to where it all works. And I think I have a pretty good idea of how I want to strategize it, but I just have to implement those things, and it takes time to get all of those things ready to like get it in place. So, yeah. So, yeah, we're going to diversify the streams. The calendar will generate a lot of sales. That'll be going on sale at the end of this month, a pre-sale. And I do have to get a couple more shots done this month before then. I feel like I'm totally behind on that. But yeah, so I'm glad you guys are hanging out, even though our production values aren't quite as high. I think we're still having a great time. And yeah, and we're also going to do some CBG gaming too. Yes. Yes, Pedro, we're going to be doing some CBG gaming. That's going to be happening. We're going to do another book club. We're going to do Exorcist Club. We're going to do the calendar. We're going to do Mystic Mondays. So that's kind of like our plan right now. You know, you might be seeing a robot show coming out on YouTube that is robot finally gets to take over. Maybe we'll see some of that stuff. We'll see, you know, but thank you everyone for hanging out. Thank you, Davey, for your patronage. You know what's up. Davey's been OG on Patreon. He's like super patron. Yeah, thank you, Davey. Thank you, Davey. Thank you. You help keeping this girl going. So yeah, anyways, I gotta go get some food and hang out. Thanks for hanging out with me, guys. This has been great. I will talk to you next Sunday for our final session of Dune Club. Be there or be square. It's going to be crazy. We'll get some food. No, I'm not eating Papa John's. And we will see you next week. Have a wonderful week, all my beautiful babies.